Mike Detillier joins us now, NFL draft expert. Does sports talk in New Orleans on WWL, the world-famous WWL radio. Mike, what's up? How are you, man?
I'm doing just fine, guys. How y'all doing?
Doing well.
Starting it off with a bang with Detillier today. I like it.
How about that, Dawn? How about that?
So I know you still dive in, obviously, with the draft, and you help others, and you're an expert in all these things. How much is it easier now without the M&D draft report, because you did that forever, and I know it's a lot of work. But so how have the last couple of years been for you?
Well, I did it for 37 years, and so that was a good ride for me. And so now I do everything but go to print with it. But I still go through the exact same deal, the exact same things that I don't have to edit. Things I write about a player, which I had to do because the draft report would have been like 1,800 pages instead of 180. And so I still go through everything as I did before. It's just that I don't print it and publish it. And so, I work with a lot of other people involved. So it's sort of the same thing, other than I don't have to deal with a printer and I don't have to deal with mailings.
I love it. Mike Detillier with us. All right, let's start with Cam Ward, the obvious pick for the Titans tomorrow. What do you think about him? What do you see in him? What do you hear about him?
I saw Cam Ward when he was at Incarnate Word. I'm on the sidelines because they played Nicholls State, which is about 15 minutes from my home here on the Bayou. And he's got a relative of his that comes walk over, and he was like, "Mr. Detillier," and I was like, "Well, you might be looking for my dad. I don't know about that." And he started, "I listen to you every day on WWL." Okay, thank you. And he said, "But man," he said, I got a nephew that's starting quarterback at Incarnate Word. First time I met Cam was that particular day, and so. The next year when they played, and man, he was really good. He was something. I told Tim Rebo, who was then the head coach at Nicholls State, you ain't ever got to worry about playing that cat again. He's going somewhere else. You don't ever have to worry about that. And then I got to spend some time with him when he came to Manning Passing Academy. When, he was at Washington State, and he came close to coming out early last year. He really did. I think that was a lot of thought process with him and his family, and they went through the channels of getting as much information. And I think he made certainly the right decision. He'd have been most likely a third-round pick a year ago. He's top pick in the draft. That's a pretty smart choice. And I know NIL, I know Miami paid pretty well. For him to go there. And he got coached last year at Miami of Florida by Coach O's son, who's the quarterback coach at Miami of Florida.
That's right. I forgot about
incredible.
that.
How about that, Dawn? So he's, one of his sons is coached the quarterbacks, the other one's coached the receivers. And so
that's why I saw Coach O in the airport coming home from that game.
Bingo.
So, now it all makes sense.
From the Syracuse game?
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Hey, it's your boy. That guy can play." I was like, "Hey, no kidding." And so we had a long talk about him, but, you watch him play, and he's a guy that they need a little bit of work with him mechanically, because he's what I would put down as an arm thrower. Very few times you see him set up, use his feet, and then cock back and throw it. He's just a cock back and throw it. I mean, there's nothing but arm talent. But he is fearless out on the field to put a ball between arms and hands. He's accurate. He's got really good mobility skills. He's a born leader. You can tell. He has got that element in him. And he's very confident in himself. And listen, when you're the quarterback, and I work with one, so I can tell you, they're all athletically arrogant. And you have to have that element in you to play the position today. You got to be thick-skinned about it. And I think he's a really good pick for the Titans. I think he's the perfect fit for what they're going to do. Now, here comes the other part for me, and I'm a big believer in that. If you're going to spend an early round pick on a quarterback and, one of the top picks, you better surround him. You better get him protection, and you better get him some tools in the box that can help him out. If it's at, wide receiver or tight end or running back, whatever, you just can't rely on him. Look at what the Chiefs have done. And if it's to go out to get veteran free agents or it's to draft early for a wide receiver, they're trying to surround Patrick Mahomes because you got something special. So when you got a player like Cam Ward, I think the key is what you have. And I do think the Titans got some interesting offers for him, but I think they've made that decision. That's where they're going to go. Now, the second part comes into play to work a little bit on his mechanics, and I'm talking about from the waist down mechanically, and also get some other pieces around him. And you certainly have that opportunity very early in round 2.
Well, Mike, when you look at it, when you're talking about round 2, who is one of those guys if you had to pick from? Trey Harris, Luther Burden, or anybody else that we may not be thinking of right now that you would say, you know what, this might be somebody good to pair with a guy like Cam Ward?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Luther Burden, I don't know what he did.
Right?
I'm right with you.
on the draft boards, yeah. But all I can tell you is everybody that has played against him, they know how good he is. And, man, he's one of these guys that can take a 5-yard play and go 55 with it. So he certainly would be a player that I would keep in mind if he gets to that point. I'm going to throw you another one out because I saw him play for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Mason Taylor, tight end from LSU. He got recruited to LSU I bring up Coach O again because I didn't know a lot about him. I knew he was Jason Taylor's son, but I didn't know a lot about him. And we were talking about something else. I asked him about Mason, and he was like, well, man, he's tall, he's athletic, he can catch the ball. And he said, man, he's something after the catch. I said, can he block? And he gave me a long pause. He said, well, we'll see about that, but he does know how to get in the way. When you watch LSU play the last couple of years, everybody talks about, the receiving core, and Malik is a tremendous football player, and so is Brian Thomas Jr. Mason Taylor kind of gets lost in the mix. Mm-hmm. And I always believe that a tight end is a quarterback's best friend. And when you look at the success of Patrick Mahomes and how much he relies on Travis Kelce, I do know who your general manager, where he was last at. So Luther Burden third, to me, Mason Taylor would certainly come into the mix there. And if you're looking for an edge guy, and I think he sits kind of right on the edge of a late first, early second, is Ezra Zaku from Boston College, Donovan. Mm-hmm. And he is such an interesting player for me because highly productive. You saw teams doing a lot of things to try to eliminate Erazaku from getting to the quarterback. And he's got a nice set of moves, counter moves, smart guy, and physically he's going to get stronger. But, man, he's got that initial burst off the line of scrimmage that is so impressive. So if you want to go defense and want an edge guy, it's that. But I think Luther Burden the third, Mason Taylor, those are the guys that you're looking at very, very early in round 2. That the crazy thing about this draft class only had 18 first-round pick grades.
18. I was going to ask you that. We always ask you that.
And so from 19 to 45, it's, is centimeters apart with all of them. And that's why I think the intrigue will be late in round 1 of if a quarterback gets involved there that a team wants to get up to get him, and then you get a 5th-year option. You don't have to pay him. If somebody falls in love with one of the running backs like Travion Henderson, I could see the Commanders do that. Man, they ain't dangerous enough with Jaden Daniels in the backfield, and you get a guy like Travion Henderson to get in there. And I always believe there's a run on big men. I think that happens. And in this draft class, 24 of my top 75 are defensive linemen. This is year 40 for me. That's never happened before. That many defensive linemen, edge and interior people. So it makes offensive line, which is not a real thick area this year, high demand. Because, everybody brings up Saquon Barkley, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him. He is a unique running back in this league, and he is a tremendous football player. But what really scares you with the Eagles is that offensive-defensive line. When you break it all down, a lot of people don't like to admit it, but it goes back to old-fashioned football. That's how you win. You got to have a quarterback, no question. But also, you better win up front, offensive, defensive lines. And that's where, if you're looking for a skilled player like a Burden or a Taylor, that may come into play there to push them to that point where the Titans could use that early second-round pick on either one.
Detillier, when you grade out players and rank them in your, top 75 or whatever, do you pull quarterbacks out of that, or do you keep them in the 1 through ranking?
Oh, that's a good question. I always sort of keep it together, but this is something I'm going to give him credit because this A-Bear that told me this. We started working together about 25 years ago, and he told me, Mike, man, all this stuff these people talk about, all these other positions, come on. And I think it was a throwaway line, but he said, man, quarterbacks trump every position. That has always sort of stuck in my mind, that we all see it, that there's a wide variety of opinions on quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And, okay, you're not running for the presidential election trying to win. This isn't the electoral college. You're trying to get one team to get you, to convince them that you're the guy. And so that's why you hear all this kind of crazy talk about this quarterback and Jalen Hurts here and Jackson Dart here, and it's all over the board, Shadir Sanders. So you have to include them, but I always don't bump them up because history tells me that they get picked higher than you might think. So you might have a guy ranked, let's say 20th. Last year I had Michael Penix 20th on my list. Look where he got picked.
Yeah.
Was it 8th or 9th on the list?
Yeah.
And so he went 12 picks ahead of that. Bo Nix was 23 for me. And Coach Payton picked him in the teens.
Yeah.
So it goes to show you those things. J.J. McCarthy, for me, was, I think, 16th or 17th, and where he was a top 10 pick. So it does go to show you that theory has sort of stayed in place, but there are always varying factors. Because I think last year the biggest surprise was once you got out of the round one, it took you a long time before Spencer Rattler got selected. That was a big hole in between all those early round, first round pick quarterbacks and where Rattler gets selected.
All right, so where do you have Cam? Big question.
Cam's 4th on my list.
Okay.
He graded out with Cam Ward graded out with the 4th highest grade for me. Number 1 on that list was Travis Hunter. I guess he's the unicorn for me. I've never had a guy that I think walking off of a college campus could start at wide receiver and could start at corner.
Yeah.
And he did it in college. I mean, give me another one that's done that. He is legit the unicorn. And I always felt Abdul Carter, because in this league you need to have a guy that can rush the quarterback. He was number 2 for me.
Okay.
And Ashton Genty was 3.
Yeah.
Man, I watched him and I'm like, whoa. That guy, and running backs have been devalued across the NFL. I think Saquon's going to help, and this is a year of quantity and quality at the halfback position. But Genty was special, and then it became Cam Ward at 4.
Yeah, Genty, we're going to talk about this today. It sounds like he may end up in Jacksonville, which means the Titans get to deal with him twice.
No.
So that'll be interesting. I want to go back to a couple of the Ole Miss guys. You mentioned one, and Slay mentioned one. Trey Harris at wide receiver. And what do you think about Jackson Dart?
I saw Trey Harris in high school. He was an option quarterback. You know who his receiver was at Como High School? Malik Neighbors.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay,
That's
they ran
unreal.
the option. And Trey was playing quarterback. So
How do you
He
run
was-
the option with those guys?
Put the ball
Dawn,
in
I
the
ain't
best
coaching
player's
the high
hands.
school ranks, but I'll do one thing. Malik Neighbors is going to touch the ball quite a bit. I don't care if he's running it or catching it.
That's true.
And so Trey went through the transition, and one thing with the state of Louisiana, they produce some receivers, and he kind of got caught up in the mix. He ends up at Louisiana Tech. He spends 2 years there. And then I meet up with him, and he tells me, Coach, I'm leaving. I'm going to play somewhere. But I want to go somewhere where they throw the ball. And the first team he told me, he said, the Ole Miss is really after me pretty hard. I said, man, you go to Ole Miss, Trey, they're going to throw you the ball. I know Lane Kiffin knows about throwing the ball. And he's not the fastest guy around, okay? But he has got some length to him. He can stretch the field. He can make plays outside of his body zone to make a catch. And being a former quarterback, you got to be able to run with the ball. Okay, well, how he did in high school. And so he's shifty out in space to make a guy miss or two, and then he's out into the open field. I've got him ranked as a second-round pick.
Right.
And he is a really good football player, real focused young man. His big dream was to play pro football, and now he's getting that opportunity. So I've got him ranked as a second-round pick. Jackson Dart, interesting because we had Slovis, who was the quarterback at USC, come to Manning camp. And, Keaton, and he was like, if I get my opportunity, I'm going to be the starting quarterback this year. But, boy, we bringing in a guy from Utah, and I remember the recruiting part, with Jackson, because he was the Gatorade Player of the Year in Utah, highly recruited, goes to USC, and then Slovis gets hurt, and it opened the door for Dart to come in. He played a lot as a true freshman, but when Lincoln Riley took the job, I knew one thing: they were going to have a lot of people going to Dart. Now, if you'd have asked me at that moment, I knew if Riley's there, so is Caleb Williams. But if you'd have told me that he'd end up at Ole Miss, I'd have bet you a lot of money that wouldn't have happened. But you saw his growth as a player. He is a gunslinger, and he takes chances downfield. But he's gotten much more accurate with his throws. He's a good athlete. The one bad habit he's got, and he's got to break this, is that, and this may be part of the system too, he will pass up a very easy throw, easy completion, 8-10 yards downfield. He tries to go with the home run.
Hero ball. Yep.
And I see it. And so, when you watch the Kentucky game and the Florida game, and toward the end against LSU, he was trying to be kind of the hero there and hit the home run shot. And he could have easily taken that 8, 10, 12-yard completion and moved the sticks and gotten it. That, I think, is a little bit ingrained in him. So I'm wondering if that's a part of what Ole Miss wanted him to do. But he cares, and he's a leader. He's a tough guy. And, man, he took some shots at Ole Miss. It's not like they had the 5 blocks of granite, protecting him. Now, man, he got whopped a few times pretty good, but I think he ends up late in round 1. I think he's a trade back guy for some team that comes in to say, we know in year 1 that he's not going to be the guy for us, but boy, in year 2, we going to hand him the baton and tell him, Jackson, run with it.
I love it. Mike Detillier with us talking NFL draft. Always appreciate your expertise, Mike.
Appreciate that, Mike.
Always love hearing your voice, and the listeners love your accent.
Thank you. Yeah, I get told that every once in a while. They sometimes it's crazy. I get people say, "Are you from New York?" And I say, "What? New York? Man, what you hearing?" But yet I've heard it so many times. It has to be some pickup on the deal. So Coach always say, "Hey, you know, only cool ass from the Bayou people think from New York."
Well, we appreciate you, Mike. It's going to be fun this weekend. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys. Y'all take care.
There you go, Mike Detillier.